Today, most people who think of Dolmetsch recorders have the firm's modernized type of instruments in mind. For a quarter century, let's say about 1945 until 1970, these were used by most of the world's leading players. But the majority of Dolmetsch recorders produced before the Second World War were actually tightly voiced Baroque-style instruments, often at 4/15 pitch and with undercut finger holes and arched windways. Here's an example. This is a tenor from 1929, actually probably a modified Stainsby voice flute copy at 4/15. When did modern recorder makers first start to take an interest in 18th century originals and start producing quality copies of them? Well, not in the 1960s or 70s as is often claimed. Frans Bruggen and others did help to popularize Baroque type instruments then, and did raise playing standards to a new level, but whole sets of recorders at 4/15 were already available in 1930s England, made in Arnold Dolmetsch's Hazelmere workshop. Dolmetsch took originals by Peter Bresson and Thomas Stainsby Sr. as his starting points. He slightly raised the pitch to the standard 4/15 and rationalized their fingerings. Customers could order instruments at 4/15 or at 4/40 from the late 1920s on. 4/40 would have been a more convenient choice for most. These instruments played astonishingly well and managed to preserve the playing feel of actual Baroque recorders at either pitch. Let me give you an example. This instrument was part of a set of 6 instruments that was used for exhibitions. We're now speaking 1932. Dolmetsch recorders were actually redesigned in the late 1930s by Arnold Dolmetsch's son Carl, so that they could play louder than rival makers' instruments, and also so that they could be manufactured more efficiently, so in greater numbers really, to meet the growing demand. These changes produced the modern recorder, the modernized version, on which Bruggen, his students, and many admirers turned their backs. The modernization process happened in stages. A number of transitional models actually are featured on the second video that the Flanders Recorder duo, me and Joris, have produced, so that listeners can hear for themselves what effect these changes actually had. Modern Dolmetsch recorders were the perfect tools for the jobs that needed doing before the historically informed performance movement took off. Frans Bruggen's well-publicized switch from the modernized recorder to 18th century originals and copies of them, which happened about 1970s, dented the Dolmetsch image and created space for a new generation of makers going back to Baroque themselves. Few of these new generation makers knew or wanted actually to acknowledge that the Dolmetschers had pioneered the purist copy approach about 50 years earlier. So about the modernization, I've got 2 instruments here. This one is actually, it is a bit of a prototype. It has a shortened head combined with the center and the foot joints of a regular 4/15 treble. But nevertheless, it is a 4/40 modernized one. This was made, this concept, around 1926. So the finger holes of the center joint have been displaced a bit to compensate for the head joint shortening. It's not perfectly scaled. That means also that the response of this instrument actually is not optimal. Another one within this modernization process. This is an interesting 440 instrument, a bit transitional. It feels made around 1937, maybe 1938. The beak is plastic, not ivory. This is sort of plastic that was used back then to make billiard balls. The instrument has a bit of a straight edge, so the floor and the roof of the windways are flat. They're not arched. It's almost a bit of a letterbox, I say, windway. This was the new type of 440 treble at that point, designed for what Dolmetsch called peak performance, but also actually with the aim of somewhat simplified manufacture. It's loud actually, and it's rather in tune with more than 2-octave reach. Let's compare that to the pre-modernized, so the 18th century feel earlier instrument again. It's quite different, isn't it? In the 1920s, the English music teacher Margaret James founded the British Bamboo Pipers movement. Following the ideals of the arts and crafts movement and pursuing a simpler life after the First World War, its main project was to organize free music education. Key for them was making instruments themselves out of a natural and a free material, which was bamboo. The Pipers Guild of Great Britain recruited well. It had, 10 years after its founding, already 704 members. There were branches, there were courses, festival, and the Bamboo Pipers Guild even had its own magazine. Ralph Vaughan Williams became the guild president in 1949. But now back to the recorder. The British Pipers Guild provided inspiration and a model for Edgar Hunt in his marketing and organization of the school recorder movement in Great Britain. Hunt saw huge potential for the recorder as a music teaching tool. Carl Dolmetsch and Edgar Hunt were rival recorder players and educators through the 1930s. But to prevent destructive composition, their friends persuaded them to collaborate in forming Britain's Society of Recorder Players, modelled after the British Pipers Guild. So this, the SRP, launched in 1937, and its significance is up to this very day enormous. At this moment, Joris van Goethem is the president of the British Pipers Guild, and of the Society of Recorder Players, Philip Thorby was recently elected president. This is a homemade bamboo tenor. This is the instrument that Ralph Vaughan Williams loved so much more than the recorder, if we believe his correspondence. And he's written magnificent music for pipes, for bamboo pipes. Can also be played on recorders, of course. The Flanders Recorder Duo has been focusing on this era for 5-6 years now. We are recording all Vaughan Williams' works for bamboo pipes in a few weeks, and this project will contain an opera omnia of all his 4 works. That's duets from 1933, a canzona for 3 pipes, and the famous quartet from 1939, and the lovely viola suite for piano and 4 pipes that Vaughan Williams arranged himself. Ongoing is also an exciting Dolmetsch legacy project. So this project revisits actually an almost completely forgotten phase of recorder revival history, and Joris and I, the Flanders Recorder Duo, are responsible actually for making quite a lot of videos on historic Dolmetsch instruments. The research behind this project is undertaken by Andrew Pinnock of the University of Southampton, with whom we're collaborating. So his articles about the Dolmetsch revival and the instruments are available free of charge via the website of the Galpin Society Journal. Check the links here below. On our website, www.flanders-recorder-duo.be, you can find more information about these exciting projects.